So this is a story about how, I don't, was this my first trip to Vancouver, Canada? I don't remember. But I went there to visit some cousins who were flying in from Georgia. And so we met up, and the day that they had to go to a wedding, I went off in the city on my own. And I think, yeah, because when I'm in a new city, I like to look at the metaphysical stores and the bookstores that they have in the city to kind of get a feel for like what's going on spiritually, energetically, what's up with that. So I don't remember what part of town it was, but I ended up somewhere, and I think the bookstore was closed when I passed by. Maybe it wasn't. No, I walked by it the first time. Yeah. And I looked in the windows and I saw that they had like angels and a lot of like new agey stuff, and I was like, oh, like there's nothing going on here. Look at walking. Got a coffee somewhere nearby. Came back, passed it again, but I was like, oh, I'll just walk in and see if they have more stuff inside. And so I go inside, and near the front there was a lot of like I said, new age paraphernalia, a lot of like saints, angels, stuff that I wasn't really drawn to. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, where's the books? Looked through, the book selection is very small, and I was like, what kind of a store is this? It was just really confusing. I was like a metaphysical store, but there's just a lot going on in there. But it was fine. I was like, I'm gonna keep treasure hunting. Maybe I can find something of value. Because the store, I've been in stores, like metaphysical bookstores, there's always like a feel to them. You can tell whether they've been there for a long time or if they're like a newer shop, and they just kind of get like cold, like the new stuff that people are into, and they sell it. New age or like self-help type of bookstore type of things. But I was like, no, I feel like this store has more like than what I'm seeing in the front, right? And they did offer like readings or tarot or things like that, which is cool. Because the little area for it, little psychic area for it, was like really well done with like heavy drapes and stuff. There was like a mood about it. So I was trying to figure out the energy of this place when I stepped in, and it wasn't until finally I got to the back of the store where the register was. In the corner, that's where all the roots were. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. There was so many like roots and herbs and stuff. And I think this is when I just started working more with them. And the way they did it was really nice. Like just the label design, it was very simple, but very like, there's something about it that there was like taste in terms of like the design and stuff, even though it was all like kept in little Ziploc bags. And I want to say, yeah, because it was different from other stores that I've been in where they would sell the roots, the herbs behind the counter in bulk. This one was cool because they sold in little plastic baggies, but they had the name of it, and then they had the magical properties and the uses for it, which I found very useful because, like I said, I was just starting to get into like working with like herbs and stuff. So I saw just I learned a lot just by looking at what was available, which was nice. And I was like, this is where all the good shit is. This is what I was looking for, in the back corner, in the dark. So yeah, there was balm of Gilead, which comes from the cottonwood bud tree, which I really liked. I ended up getting some of that. They had Solomon seal roots, which I'd never seen before. So I got some of that. And then, a book that I found was by Credo Mutwa. I believe it was Song of the Stars. And I remember watching a few YouTube videos of him, and I was like, oh, this guy's like fucking Zulu shaman. Let me buy this book. It was like $40, $50. So I found that too. So, little treasures when I was just kind of like, there's something I can find here, right? And the last thing that I bought was actually right on the counter. And the proprietors of the bookstore, it was a black man and a white woman. She was older. Well, they were both old. And, you know, she saw what I was buying and she was telling me like, oh, like make a honey jar and, you know, things like that, or do this with it. She was a witch basically. And at the counter, the man, it sounded like he was from an island somewhere in the Caribbean. I'm assuming, I don't know. But there was a little basket full of blue lotus, Egyptian blue lotus. And I remember, you know, hearing in a documentary, you know, they would, the Egyptians would have this carved into their hieroglyphs and their, you know, walls and stuff, or they would use it, they'd drink it with wine or something like that. So he had that on his counter available. It was the most expensive thing there. And they didn't sell it by the ounce. They must have sold it by like the quarter ounce to the half. It was very small baggies, which was fine because usually I buy herbs like by the ounce and there's just so much. The way this bookstore did it, or this place did it, was really cool because you just do little spells, but you can do a lot of spells with just a little bit, you know, and they're selling it like that. So I was like, oh, I've heard about this. I don't know what it does. There's instructions on it. It said to steep in wine for 2 weeks and shake. And, you know, I was like, let me try this. So before I paid, I grabbed it and I added to, you know, all the other things I was getting. And the man, he looked at me. He was like, he's kind of looking at me, I guess, reading me or something. And he was like, have you had this before? And I was like, no, I have not. And so he proceeded to tell me, he's like, okay, don't follow the instructions on this. He's like, steep it for 4 weeks, shake it every day. And he said, or put it in gin, you know. And I was like, oh, and he said, or a sweet wine because the taste is bitter. So I was like, huh, okay. Some really cool advice. And I was like, yes, I was excited. So yeah, he told me that. So instead of 2 weeks, I did it for 4. I steeped it in, I think it was a Shiraz wine. And I don't like wine. I mean, I can drink it, but it makes me feel like I have allergies or something. And I also can't sleep when I drink wine. I feel like my nervous system is too overstimulated. There's something going on where the effect that wine has on me is not pleasant. So I bought a small bottle. I think it was Shiraz, which I think is a dessert wine from what I remember. And usually people would be like, oh, the wine's gonna go bad when you open it. But whatever, I don't drink wine, so I don't fucking know. So anyway, I put the blue lotus in there, stuffed it full of blue lotus, shook it for about 4 weeks, on and off. I was so excited to drink this. And yeah, I remember when I was done, you know, I started sipping on it and the taste was fine. But the effects were very, very subtle, but I really enjoyed it. It actually made drinking wine a lot more tolerable for me. It's when you add blue lotus to it. It just made it feel better. I don't know how to describe it. I liked it a lot better when I had the blue lotus infused on the wine. So, yeah, that was my first trip to a metaphysical bookstore in Canada. Got some really cool herbs. Worked with the Balm of Gilead, which I still work with to this day because I just really like the smell of it. It's such a aromatic, soothing, earthy scent, sweet. Haven't really done anything with the Solomon seal root. I can't recall, but so now I want to show you. He did advise for me to infuse it in gin, which, because I've had the blue lotus as a tea, and it is like, it's bitter. It's not like a pleasant tasting tea, and gin is also not pleasant tasting. So I was like, oh, this is probably gonna sound like taste gross, but I do have a small bottle of gin with me. Greenhouse Artisan Gin, and I do have some Egyptian blue lotus with me that I'm gonna throw into this gin and infuse and see what happens, because the man told me to. He must like it in gin. So, don't try this at home unless you really want to, I guess. I haven't done this in a few years from when I first did it with the wine, and that's the reason why I bought this small bottle of gin, so I can do it again and see how it feels after it's been macerating. Is that the right word? For a few weeks. I do like gin. I like gin drinks and stuff, so. I'm just gonna shove a lot in this, because why not? This will be fun, because I could just do work and then remember to shake it every day for the next few weeks. Funny enough, the first and only time I've seen Egyptian blue lotus was by accident. It was at my mom's house. I was visiting her, and she had a tiny little pond in the back, and in the short time that I was there, because I think it only flowers for a very short period of time. The short time that I was there, I saw it flower, and it was, you know, I got to, oh, look at this, here's the center of it. It was really cool. I got to see the, yeah, I got to see it bloom, and it was so beautiful. I got a photo of it, and I told Mom, I was like, I want to harvest it. I want to harvest it. But the next day, the flower didn't open anymore. It was done. But I'm glad I got to see that. And at my mom's house too. Lotus is a symbol of the mother. So, yeah. Use my little wand. Push this in. Is that enough? I don't know. Maybe more. I guess this is what you would call a tincture. I can't tell you the benefits or whatever. I'm sure you can look it up, but I'm just doing it because that old man told me to. And so I can experience it for myself. I'm sure way back then when the Egyptians did this, and the energy of this reality was less dense, the effects were a lot less subtle than they are today. You know what I mean? They didn't have to, because when, you know, drinking this now, it's kind of like most likely not the same experience that they had, but still, there's still something there, you know. Okay, is that enough? All right, so we're gonna come back to this in 4 weeks' time and taste it. Let's see how it feels. Anyway, just wanted to share that story and do this because I've been meaning to do this. You know, macerate these lotus flowers. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys again later.